Welcome to UNISON Cymru's Rally for Public Services. Thank you to Swansea members for joining us in person, and thank you all for joining us across Wales on the live stream. I'm Dan Beard, UNISON Branch Secretary of the University of South Wales. I'm also your Assistant Convener and MC this evening. I'm really proud my union has been so focused on the Senedd elections and encouraging members to participate in these activities too. Getting people to register to vote, putting on citizenship classes to explain the elections, engaging your work colleagues in our UNISON Cymru manifesto priorities, and warning that reform are definitely not the workers' friend. There's so much at stake at this election, and we're going to talk to you about what you can do. Tonight, you'll hear from UNISON members, like you, about the daily challenges they face, from Jess, our leader in Wales, and our new General Secretary, Andrea Egan. They'll also be joined by Kemba, speaking about how the rise of reform makes her feel as a black woman, and Holly, a Swansea healthcare assistant, fresh from the magnificent Pay Fair campaign, which has won so many members thousands of pounds. As part of the convener team, I know how public service workers are struggling. We feel anxious. There's a sense of uncertainty, a lack of job security. The cost of living crisis means providing for your family is difficult, especially when you don't know if you have a job the following month. I work in higher education, and like many other parts of public services, we're in the dire straits. Across education in Wales, we've seen a perfect storm that's been building for years. Chronic underfunding, rising costs, and a growing demand for learners have pushed colleges and universities to the brink. We are now facing the biggest reduction in jobs in over 30 years. Thousands of posts have already gone, and many more are under threat. These aren't abstract numbers. They're our colleagues, our friends, people who support students day in, day out, suddenly facing redundancy notices or being pushed into short-term and insecure contracts. In our colleges, staff are working harder than ever to support learners who have been hit hardest by the cost of living crisis. Many students are juggling work, care and responsibilities, and rising travel and housing costs. That's a fight just to stay in education. Yet staff numbers are being cut, class sizes are going up, and special support is being stretched to breaking point. This doesn't just damage staff well-being, it directly affects the quality of education learners receive. In universities, the situation is no better. We're told there's no money, yet workload keeps increasing. Professional service staffs are being asked to do the work of 2 or 3 people. Teaching and research staff are firefighting just to keep courses running. And now we're hearing more about artificial intelligence. Technology should support education and not be used as an excuse to cut jobs. All this matters because education is a public service. Colleges and universities transfer lives, support communities, drive local economies, and widen access to opportunity. When we cut staff and destabilise institutions, the whole of Wales loses out. UNISON members are not asking for the earth. We're asking for sustainable funding, secure jobs, fair workloads, and respect for the vital work we do. That's why this election matters so much. And that's why UNISON members are standing together, speaking out and demanding better, not just for ourselves, but for the generations who rely on public education and the public services that we deliver. UNISON Cymru's demand is clear. Across every sector we represent, the next Welsh Government must invest in public services and its workforce. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Jess Turner, our UNISON Cymru Regional Secretary, to talk about our election campaign, and she's very proud of her Swansea roots.
I am very proud of my Swansea roots. In fact, some of you know me in Cardiff, might hear me come out a little bit more Swansea tonight. Noswaith ar, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about UNISON's priorities for this Senedd election, and as Dan says, how we've approached this campaign with our members involved every step of the way. Now, I don't need to tell anyone in this room that this is an election like no other that we have seen in Wales, probably the most important since devolution. I know that our General Secretary will talk passionately later about the threat that we face in Wales if the election goes the wrong way. But what we know is that a week from today, public service workers have a choice between a government that has their back or one that wants to undermine everything they do. Now, I have been clear that UNISON Cymru members have agency in this election. In a new proportional system, our 100,000 members in Wales can make a key difference in who governs Wales if those members vote for the policies that best support them and best support public services. Now, as with any election, the challenge for the trade union movement remains: how do we hold on to what we've got and what we have won here in Wales over the last 20 or so years, but also take the fight for better? Now, over a year ago, UNISON activists from all sectors came together to begin sharing the issues that would form the basis of our manifesto. We honed these issues into key asks that became the UNISON Cymru manifesto that we launched this March very successfully. And this was their starting point in that meeting: that people delivering vital public services shouldn't be trapped in poverty just because of the jobs they do, whether it's care workers supporting the vulnerable, people in our hospitals, or school support staff. We've made it our mission, because of what they said, this Senedd election, to ensure that the voice of public service workers is heard, but in particular, the voice of those working in predominantly female, historically undervalued jobs. These are women who live and work and vote in every community in Wales. And this is the challenge made in UNISON's manifesto: who will improve our public services and who will also improve the lives of the people delivering them. So what are public service workers asking through their union this election? Well, firstly, a commitment to a school support staff negotiating body, but crucially, they're promising that in England and they're getting it, but in Wales, we want one which ends the injustice of term time only pay. Now, term time only pay is such an obvious injustice as it traps thousands of women in poverty. And I can't believe that we are still talking about term time pay in 2026. They also want to see the funded delivery of the Wales Fair Pay negotiating body for care workers. That negotiating body has been set out already in the Employment Rights Bill, but we want to see it with a minimum of £15 an hour for care workers, proper sick pay and recognition for the value that care workers bring to our society. Now, what do the sectors that I've just mentioned have in common? Well, I think it's the historical undervaluing of what was always seen as women's work: care for our children, care for our elderly, and the professionalisation of these roles will only go so far. Parties now have to put their money where their mouth is if we are to properly reward these workers for their essential role in communities and in our lives. We also want to see profit out of care in Wales for good. The last Welsh Government legislated to remove profit from children's social care. That was a groundbreaking policy happening only here in Wales, which I'm really proud of. And it's a policy that deserves every credit. But that should just be the start. Profit out of adult social care will actually keep billions of pounds in Wales instead of offshore accounts. And however challenging it is to get there, it would be worth it. We also have the chance to build a real political consensus in Wales this election around the role of all profit in public services, including real commitments to insourcing, not just as the morally right thing to do, but often as the safest thing to do for service users and much better value in the long term. Now, staying in care, we are also calling on parties to commit to UNISON's Migrant Worker Care Charter, something that our amazing migrant worker activists won in Cardiff Council. We want to see that very same charter spread across Wales. We can't change the unjust visa system in this Senedd election, but what we can do is ensure that companies built on exploitation and modern-day slavery are driven out of Wales. Now, we talk a lot about care in UNISON, but that's because there's a lot to fix in the care system. But it's also because care doesn't get the same mention or attention as the NHS, which is in our lives every day. And of course, the NHS is another institution we must protect this election. But if you ask any health worker, they'll tell you can't fix the problems in the NHS without fixing social care. Okay, so we also know the cost of living is still high on the agenda, even more so in the past few months with world events. We know that workers in health and local government are feeling that, and Dan has talked about HE and FE as well. So we also want to see a commitment to direct negotiations on health pay so that decisions on NHS pay are made in Wales and not passed down from an unaccountable body in London. We also need greater long-term investment in our underfunded council services. UNISON's APSI report argued that money taken out of prevention when services close just gets spent later down the line in reactive services like the NHS or like the criminal justice system. We're saving nothing as a country when we slash these services, so let's invest instead. Let's get into that mindset. And you can see how successful we've been on our UNISON Senedd elections campaign website and on our socials, where we've given the main parties a visual scorecard on the commitments that you've asked for, running right up until the election. Now, I know if I worked in a school, I would want to know who is committing to end term time pay or who is willing to commit to making care workers' lives better. So we urge our members to use these tools. And this is just one of the ways that we are helping members navigate this election. This is the most polarising election in my lifetime. And as Dan alluded to as well, I am proud that UNISON hasn't shied away from the difficult conversations. And we've approached this election holding fast to our values by trying to take workers with us in the best tradition of trade union solidarity. So, we've also been doing a lot more to get people genned up on the election. We've been running daily information sessions, not telling people how to vote, but also to empower people to understand the new voting system and alerting them to some of the key differences they might not understand in this election, like 16-year-olds having the vote and migrant workers in Wales being able to vote, which is a really good thing. Our social media has also showcased the asks of our members, but also highlighted the danger of reform for Welsh public services, showing clearly where their policies diverge from the needs of UNISON members, like on the Employment Rights Bill and on the Equality Act, both of which they would scrap, by the way. And on their school's promise, a thinly veiled rehash of English academies, something that we have strongly resisted here in Wales, and UNISON has been part of resisting that model because it has proven to be bad news for workers in England. Now, we've exposed reforms policies through well-researched and authoritative reports, calling out their leader's record in Barnet Council so that you know how he would lead Wales given the chance. And we've stayed connected with our members, something I'm really proud of, having one-to-one conversations with over 1,000 care workers in the last few weeks to ensure that they know what's at stake in this election and where the parties stand before they vote. And that's what I meant at the start of this when I talked about agency. These members know that they can make a real difference in the outcome of this election. When we talk to them, they tell us what it's like to work in care. Some of them are subject to the visa system. They tell us how it lets them down. They also tell us as care workers what a difference £15 an hour would really make to their lives. And that's just care workers. Now imagine every UNISON member and their family and their close friends went out and voted to improve their pay and conditions and their public services. What an impact you can have. What an impact that we can all have on these elections. And what a chance we've got now to reject hate and division and vote for something better. So use it. Thank you.
Now on to the speakers. Thank you, Jess. Our next speaker is a senior activist, Kemba Hadaway-Morgan. She was a social worker based in Swansea who has advised Welsh Government on racial equality. Kemba will speak about the rise, how the rise of reform makes her feel. Kemba.
Go back to your country. Are you even British? Are you Welsh? That name doesn't sound very Welsh. Are you illegal? Which boat did you come on? N-word, get off this bus. Do you pay taxes? What race are your children? Comrades, I'm not sharing my experiences so that you feel sorry or that you say, ooh, really, ugh. I don't want a cup of tea. It's not going to help. I don't need a hug. Do you know 40% of Black women in Wales experience racial discrimination every day? 65% of us experience persistent sexual and racial abuse and harassment. 75% of us experience racism in the workplace. Black women and girls, we are the targets and subjects of over 50 hate crimes per week. Do the maths. And whilst a lot of the data is aggregate, remember, the absence of a thing is not evidence that thing is absent. Comrades, the ever-growing threat of reform in Wales means black women like me, black girls like my daughters, will continue to feature at record, disproportionate levels in these horrific stats, because reform wants to scrap protections like anti-racism, equality under the law, and they want to scrap our nation of sanctuary status. The Reform Party is driven by collective racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and they are a haven for the far right. From Nazi salutes to candidates posting a photo of a black Muslim woman and calling for SF machine guns to open fire. Another reform candidate suggesting that refugees crossing the channel should be used as target practice by the army. And then we have, recently here in Swansea, another reform candidate, emboldened by his party's misogynistic values, decided to tell women where their place would be. And not the worst, but the worst on today. We have another reform candidate who decided that his belief and his party's belief is that brown babies that brown and black women make come from people's bums. Now, comrades, whilst these comments might make Enoch Powell shudder, or even the devil's toes curl, these are not the worst. This is the tip of the iceberg. The stark reality is that for black women and girls, the situation is now code blue. If you in this room, and those of you listening to my voice, if you say no to this reality, then being a bystander is no longer an option. Waiting and looking for someone else to step in or step up is no longer your plan B. Your allyship can no longer be performative. It requires consistent, bold, and brave action. I dare each of you in this room today, those of you listening to my voice, to say, Kemba, I stand with you. I challenge you to share the weight of our collective responsibility. I dare you to count yourselves amongst the brave. Let us tell the likes of Sarah Pochin, we want to see black women and girls in adverts. On May the 7th, let us use those hard-won voting rights to send a loud, clear message to the likes of Dan Thomas and Farage, who feel they would rule roughshod in Wales. Let them know that Wales is not the place for them. Comrades, I'm calling on you today, right here in the room. I want to see you rise up from your seats, and I want to hear you shout loud and clear, not on my watch. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. Those of you at home and you're watching the live stream, if you are able to, put it in the chat. Not on my watch. Comrades, the battle against racism and those like the Reform Party who promote racism is not a show for black women. It's not a show for girls. You're not showing support by challenging reform. What you are actually saying is you stand for humanity, you stand for justice, and you want to be part of the future we all deserve. Solidarity, comrades.
Thank you, Kemba. I know I speak on behalf of our entire union and for the majority of the trade union movement in Wales when I say not on our watch. Tonight, We now have a mix of videos to show you and in-person speakers. I'd like to introduce the videos first. We have the team in social care. We have Jan, a Swansea school support worker. We have Jan, our local government chair, and Tess, chair of our energy service group. And thank you for giving up their time. If you play the video, please.
My name is Ditena Favor Imono, and I'm a home care worker. And on the 7th of May, I'm going to be voting for the party which offers the best deal for care workers. As care workers, we work with vulnerable people. When we fall ill, we have to make a choice of taking sicknesses into workplaces or take a pay cut and stay back at home. This is not fair. People are leaving care because they know they can get better paid in places like Aldi and Lidl. These are people who love their jobs, but unfortunately they cannot be able to afford to remain in the care sector. Care is a skilled job, and all we ask is to be paid what we are worth. The last Welsh government promised us the real living wage, but some of us are still not getting that. The next Welsh government has to back this up by law and give us a proper pay deal. On the 7th of May, I'm going to be voting for the party which offers the best deal to care workers. And I'm going to make sure everyone I know, votes too. Make sure you vote as well.
Hi, my name's Jan Murray and I've been a TA in Swansea for over 20 years. Throughout this time I have seen my role evolve and change to become a professional and integral part of the education system. What hasn't evolved is our pay. Term time only pay traps us in poverty with inconsistent pay calculation and unfair terms and conditions. As the school environment becomes more challenging, the demands on our time and our responsibilities have increased for little financial reward. Support staff in schools face more challenging and disruptive behaviour on a daily basis. We carry out intimate care procedures and give medication with often little or no proper training. The majority female workforce has chosen the profession to fit around their own childcare needs. Parents would be shocked to know how many people who care for and educate their children rely on food banks to feed their own families, with one school in Cardiff being forced to open a food bank to provide the facility for its own staff members. UNISON is campaigning for a Wales school support staff negotiating body and is committed to tackling term time only pay as a priority. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jan Davis. I'm the Chair of Local Government Committee Cymru. I'm also the Branch Secretary for Monmouthshire County Council. Evidence indicates that councils have reached a critical point where further savings can only result in job losses, reduced service provision and declining staff well-being. Preventative and non-statutory services are being disproportionately affected, placing increased strain on reactive public services such as the NHS. Even marginal reductions in funding have led directly to workforce cuts rather than efficiencies or service redesign, simply because there is nothing else left to cut. Staff sickness levels are increasing, with employees leaving roles and not being replaced. Workforce sustainability is now under serious threat, with many employees reaching breaking point. Care plans have been repeatedly reduced, leaving service users struggling to cope. Councils are no longer able to contain cuts within efficiencies and are instead shedding non-statutory services entirely. There is effectively no scope for further cuts without causing significant harm to communities. Across Wales, funding pressures have resulted in closure of youth clubs, reduced library opening hours, closure of leisure centres, or increased changes and charges to the public. These changes disproportionately affect lower income communities. Many councils have outsourced social care and leisure services as a cost-saving measure. This approach has consistently resulted in suppressed wages, increased job insecurity, disproportionate negative impact on a predominantly female workforce. Outsourcing has therefore contributed to in-work poverty rather than delivering sustainable savings, particularly in preventative services. 2, we need insourcing of services to protect pay, conditions and service quality. 3, we need investment in the public sector workforce as a critical enabler of service delivery. 4, we need fair funding for Wales, including reform of existing allocation mechanisms. And 5, we need a commitment to world-class public services delivered directly by accountable local authorities.
Hi everybody, my name's Tess Morris and I'm the Chair of UNISON Cymru Energy Service Group. For UNISON Cymru members working in the energy sector, securing a just transition to environmentally sustainable net zero economy in a fair and equitable way is crucial to ensure that no one is left behind. Because our members are the experts in what they do, they have the skills and years of experience in the sector and they must be part of the future. But a just transition is not just about energy workers, it goes much further than that. It affects all UNISON members and communities, from the cost of bills in our homes, poverty eradication and social justice, including our other public services like health, education, social care and local government. So what's really needed? Well, that's investment in skills and infrastructure as a long-term solution to the energy crisis, protecting and creating high-quality jobs and employment, a balanced low-carbon energy mix, no community left behind. And knowing this as a worker myself for over 23 years in the energy sector, what I see from Reform in their manifesto as their answers to issues such as high energy bills or flooding across Wales deeply concerns me. When their manifesto stance is fossil fuels focus, i.e. drilling for oil and gas, or anti-renewable, i.e. scrapping funding for solar projects, or alternative energy sources, i.e. fracking or reopening coal mines, or their statement that net zero is destroying the economy and jobs, claiming it makes energy bills more expensive when the primary driver of recent high bills has been expensive gas prices. It's clear that the words that they are saying really mean let's take Wales backwards. Let's put workers, the progress made already in building the infrastructure for cheaper, locally produced renewable energy, our communities and our environment at risk. Because for them, the importance is making fossil fuel industry bosses and themselves happy. A vote for Reform this May Senedd elections would be devastating for all our public services, all UNISON members and communities across Wales. Diolch yn fawr iawn for your time.
Very powerful videos. I want to hear from more members. We asked everyone attending in Swansea for their views on public services, and I want to read out some of their answers now. For everyone who came here, we asked them for their experience of social care and how it should be improved. Cass said, I represent members in social care and I have disabled adult children. Care workers need to be brought back in-house. Being outsourced is not working. Judith said, there can be long waiting times for assessments and the right support is not always provided. Nell said, I think social care needs to be a priority and much better linked with healthcare, and both need funding, not based on profit or business models, but needs-led. A long-sighted approach is needed, which saves money providing good care early and preventing misery and deprivation lead to higher costs or just more illness. John said, social care is seriously stretched. Mark stressed the need for the sector to work more closely with the NHS. And Lorna said, a complete revamp of social care is needed. And finally on this bit, Kemba said, end profit in social care, and she called for an end to exploitation of migrant care workers. And a round of applause for all of these, please. We then asked how the schools workforce should be rewarded and if low pay was a problem in their profession. School staff work above and beyond their pay. Councils should pay up. end term time only pay, higher wages. They need to feel valued as employees. Catering and cleaning staff in schools are on part-time, low hours and struggling to make ends meet. And end the term time only pay to tackle gender discrimination. Jan, who was a schools member, gave a perfect answer. We need a Wales school support staff negotiating body and the abolition of term time only pay to retain and recruit highly motivated support staff in schools. Support staff need access to training and CPD. And Martin said, low pay is a problem in his sector in higher education, where we face wage stagnation and grade compression with no meaningful pay rise, and our current one is still deferred by employer where the next has been negotiated nationally. We next asked, what did they want from their NHS? Healthcare workers said work-related stress is at unmanageable levels. NHS staff are overworked, underpaid. They are unable to give the public the level of care they want to. They're calling for more funding for primary care services. They want medical research prioritised and funded, not profit-led, and end discrimination of migrant staff and patients. And lastly, we asked them, what do they want from their council services? I want high-quality local services. Councils need to bring services in-house, as sending out private is costing councils more money, and we need to reduce the amount we are spending on agency and private contractors. Better access to services, and workforce paid appropriately for the service they provide. Councils working more closely with health. And finally on this, I want full public ownership and accountability. Well said. Can I have a round of applause, please? Now on to our next speaker. I would like to introduce Holly, who is a healthcare assistant working in Neath. She helped to drive a very successful campaign that has empowered Swansea Bay healthcare workers and offers all UNISON Cymru members a template on how we can win change by standing together. Holly.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm a healthcare support worker in Swansea Bay, working in Neath Pataga Hospital. I never expected to be this active in the union. When I first started my career in health and social care, I didn't know much about UNISON or what it stood for. But the Swansea Pay Fair dispute changed all of that and showed me what can be achieved if workers stand together. It started as a dispute between Swansea Bay Health Board and UNISON about the work Band 2 healthcares we're doing. We, for years, were working way above our job descriptions for no more pay. It got to the point where healthcare assistants were informed that they were expected to complete extra duties without any recognition for their skills and very little training. UNISON Cymru worked very hard. A team was formed and the Pay Fair for Patient Care campaign was created. It began to get a lot of traction with members. A lot of us participated in the planning committee. At first, the health board said they weren't going to listen or allow the back pay that we deserved. That changed when UNISON members united to vote in favour of strike action. The health board backed down and paid us what was due, thousands of pounds in back pay. We were only successful thanks to the hard work of UNISON and all of my colleagues standing together. Voting for strike action, I felt I wasn't alone in the fight and completely supported by UNISON. We believed we had the power to make change, and the strike vote was empowering. When some colleagues were asked to vote for strike action, initially some were concerned about losing wages or being reprimanded if something happened. But the UNISON's support and strike fund won them over and we were solid. Our achievement in Swansea was rolled out across Wales. We felt so proud that ours was the first health board to recognise the unfairness and correct it. We always wanted healthcare workers across Wales to benefit, and it made us happy to think that we had helped to force that change. It was about recognising Band 2s in every health board who were always asked to do much more without the pay attached. Since then, I've managed to remain active in the union. I've become a ward representative, and my colleagues now know that they have the support of UNISON. If they have a sickness meeting or a grievance, they can speak to me and I will raise it on their behalf. I hope this example of the Swansea dispute inspires you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. And on behalf of the convener team, thank you for everything you've done for our members and our union. Right, moving on. Do you think reform are for the people? Think again. Here's a very short 1-minute video from Unison, which we're pleased to share you from our social media.
Think reform are for the people, or are they just puppets for the interests of the global elites? Undecided? We'll take a look at the list of donors. Reform has sent thousands of pounds overseas for Trump's campaigns, and their politicians have flown to the US repeatedly to support him. They've also been clear that if given the chance, they'd force the UK to leave the ECHR, paving the way for bad actors to terrorise our communities and dictate women's rights. They're pro-Trump, pro-handouts for the rich, whilst ordinary people suffer. Trump and his cronies have no place in Wales.
Now, we are very pleased indeed to introduce our new General Secretary, Andrea Egan, elected to office just a few weeks ago. So we're happy she's chosen to meet with Welsh members so early in her term. Indeed, if you follow Andrea on social media, you'll find she's been everywhere since she's been elected. Andrea is very passionate about organising the win, so I think she would have enjoyed Holly's speech. Andrea is going to speak of the power of the union and a warning about reform. Andrea.
Thank you, Jess, Kemba, Ollie, Dan, for your words earlier this evening. And when you, my colleagues, my comrades from UNISON Cymru invited me to this event to speak to my fellow members, not just here in Swansea, but all those across Wales watching online, I made it a top priority in our union's election campaign. Because I want you to know that workers across Britain and beyond stand in solidarity with workers here in Swansea and throughout Wales. This is where the threat of reform looms large over a whole nation, your workplaces, your families and your communities. If Farage's rabble form a government next week, all public services that the Welsh Government is responsible for will be at risk. That's your job. And those tens of thousands of other Unison members, workers like Jan in your schools, like Ollie in your NHS, like Disney in social care, like Dan in further education, like Jan in the local council services, we all rely on every day, like Tess in the energy sector. And it's often women, often low paid, often undervalued and overworked, but always vital. These are women that two of Reform's candidates in Merthyr think shouldn't be going out to work at all. So be in no doubt about what Nigel Farage thinks and believes about you, about us, working class women, and about the work we do and why we do it. And we know what he thinks about public services. We know how he thinks about how they should be delivered for private profit, not public good. You just need to look at the person Farage has picked to represent him in Wales, Daniel Thomas. Until very recently, a Tory, like so many of them, but not just any old Tory. He's the former leader of Barnet Council, the council with the biggest failed outsourcing experiment in local government history where that took place. And of course, he was at the centre of that scandal. Reform or Tory, it is the same old story. A story that UNISON Cymru recent report set out in great detail. The facts, the history, and the ideology of this man, the man who wants to lead Wales, are there for all to see. And of course, Daniel Thomas says you can't trust Unison on this matter. But when he says you can't trust a union, he's saying you can't trust a worker like you. Remember, you are the union, the workers, the members. And he likes to say his record speaks for itself. Hundreds of millions of pounds overspent. Local services outsourced to Capita. Pension chaos for workers. Public scrutiny curtailed, ending in 2 cases of fraud of an outsourced service that went undiscovered by the council or Capita. This is who Reform are. Thatcherite cultists determined to ruin this great country. And Lee Anderson said it himself. Reform only wants to use Wales as a stepping stone on their road to power across Britain. They want the funding that comes with seats in your Senate, your national parliament. That's it. Because with Reform, it is always about the money. Just look at who funds them. Look at who wants them to win. They don't care about Welsh working class people. They don't care about Wales or your proud history. They care about power and the profits of the men who fund them. The bosses in the outsourcing industry and in the fossil fuel industry. We've heard on the video from Tess about the threat to the clean, homegrown, renewable Welsh energy. And the ludicrous idea that Reform peddles that by digging up more fossil fuel, we can somehow cut the cost of living crisis. They say this when Wales has all the wind, the water and tides and even the sunshine it needs to power itself and more. It's utter right-wing nonsense. And at UNISON, we believe there must be a just transition for workers in communities like Port Talbot, with training and support and new unionised jobs in the new industries that are being built there. And that just transition must include access to well-paid, low-carbon, unionised jobs in public services too. Jobs providing services here in Swansea and in every village, town and city throughout Wales. It must include public sector jobs, retrofitting homes for workers so that your homes are safe and warm, so your bills are affordable and you can generate your own power. And it must include policies like more council homes and more low-cost public transport. Clean energy, owned by the working class, not reopening coal mines or owned by the rich. And there must be justice for the workers who keep vulnerable people safe during floods and heat waves, like the workers who came to the people's aids in places like Monmouth, Pontypridd and St Aspath. They are the front lines, and Reform will put them in even bigger danger. So, because this election is about you, the people that care about us and your communities, no matter where you were born, your class, your age, your gender, your sexuality, your race or your disability, and no matter who you are or what job you do, whether it's in the energy or the environment sector, or in social housing, the police and justice service, careers, Wales and all the other workers represented by UNISON Cymru, Reform puts your rights at work at risk. And if they can take control of Wales now, they can take control of Britain in 2029. And what's at threat? Well, what is at threat is the hard-won rights and protections of the Employment Rights Act and the Equalities Act that we go on day by day, that will go on. And that means your right to bereavement leave, your protection during cancer care, gone. Your day one rights to maternity and paternity leave, gone. And your rights to organise together with your colleagues in your workplaces to protect yourselves and your services, gone. Because let me tell you, If Reform get in power, they're coming for the trade union movement, because we're the space that can organise our members and our communities. Here in Wales, the threat of Reform's ultra-Tory agenda isn't just at the next Westminster election. It's imminent, and it's real, and it's right now. So within weeks of a Welsh government led by Reform, so much of the progress made since devolution could be swept away. Policies like keeping your schools in local control, not selling off the NHS services to the private sector, and giving workers a voice in change. The Social Partnership Act and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and the Wales Union Learning Fund, the All Wales Disciplinary Policy in the NHS, and your Model Union Recognition Agreement in social care, it will come to an end. But I know that many people in Wales are disappointed, even angry, at what the government in Westminster has done and what it hasn't done since it's been elected. Believe you me, I know. I was elected on a clear mandate that UNISON can't continue to support politicians who fail to back our members and uphold the core values of our movement. It's why I've spoken out about the control-free career in Westminster, the poor policy decisions and its rotten internal culture. That's why I've been critical of Keir Starmer and others who've let down our movement. But comrades, don't let the psychodrama of Westminster influence your vote next week. The cost is just too high. The hard-won rights that I've just described, the policies and legislation that we fought for, will vanish. And the harm that it could cause for our friends, our neighbours, our colleagues at work is too great. I know the Welsh working class want change. They want world-class public services, they want better pay, and they want the voices to be heard in workplaces and in their parliament. And our union has responded to their call. UNISON Cymru's manifesto sets out the priorities of over 100,000 UNISON members in Wales. A Wales with the fair funding it needs to rebuild truly universal, preventative public services that help people to stay healthy and to keep them out of hospital corridors. A Wales that built the NHS in the 20th century building, a national care and support service fit for the 21st century. A Wales where term time only paying schools is ended and NHS pay is negotiated here, not handed down from London. A Wales where workers like you have a strong voice, using your collective power, organised through your trade union to bargain for and win better paying conditions, just like Holly and the UNISON healthcare support workers won here in Swansea Bay. A Wales where future generations can thrive, where women can go to work and earn a decent living free from harassment and discrimination. A Wales where workers who have made this great nation their home are not exploited, and one where profit is driven out of our care system once and for all. And a Wales where LGBT plus people can access the services they need without fear, or where racism is tackled head on. A Wales that is confident and compassionate, caring and creative. Comrades, the progressive majority can win against reform. And we were inspired by what was achieved up the road in Caerphilly last year. But we only have 1 week left to lock it in. 1 week to talk to our friends, our family, our neighbours and our work colleagues, to share our union's message of hope and working class solidarity and encourage people to vote for world-class public services and make Wales the envy of the world, just like it was when a Welshman, Nye Bevin, created our National Health Service and changed the lives of working class people throughout Wales and Britain. Comrades, thank you so much for inviting me here today. We have got a world to win. Solidarity.
What a speech. Thank you, Andrea. And can I also thank everybody who's spoke here tonight, so everybody's contributed, everybody who's come here and joined online. To end out these things tonight, I'd like to invite Jess back to close tonight's event and remind you what we're asking you to do.
Thank you, Dan. And so I also need to thank Dan for chairing and emceeing tonight's event so brilliantly and holding us together seamlessly. So our General Secretary has already given us our calls to action. We all need to get involved in this campaign. There's a week to go. It doesn't matter if you haven't done anything yet. In fact, it's important that you do something this last week. It's not too late to get involved in our campaign. There will be information through a QR code on how you can access Unison resources and get the information you need to talk to your friends and family, as our General Secretary has asked you to do. Talk to your politicians, grill them. There are enough of them around. They're knocking the doors all the time. Get the Unison Manifesto asks, get the asks for your sector and ask them what they would do if they were in power. But the most important thing is that you get out and vote for Unison policies and vote for public services. Thank you.